All right, friends, if you're listening now, you've heard us talk about what I think both Natalie and I agree is a pretty insidious kind of program. At least this is me. I won't put words in your mouth, Natalie. I think it's an insidious program that takes away from educational resources, that in many ways imposes religion on people, even if it does not seem like it does. I think there's an argument to be made that this is the imposition of religion on school-age children in various ways. But if you've sort of been sleepwalking here for some reason and you've been walking the dog and you've been distracted, I need you to wake up, because a lot of folks who are affiliated with and part of the design of Project 2025, yes, that Project 2025, the one that Donald Trump is distancing himself and is all over the news and every big outlet is talking about, from John Oliver to wherever, that Project 2025 that we've been covering for months now is connected to LifeWise. So I'm going to leave it to you, Natalie. Give us some of the connections between LifeWise and Project 2025.
LifeWise Academy has connections to several groups that are either aligned with Project 2025 via how these organizations have promoted the program. In some cases, it's related to their funding, and in some cases, it's appears to be connected to groups that are lobbying for state policy. Some of the places where LifeWise is being promoted have been Heritage Foundation's Daily Caller podcast, and Media Matters even covered that, and also the Family Research Council's Washington Watch with Tony Perkins. I believe he's been on that one, Joel Penton, several times. And it gets promoted in Moms for Liberty groups, like Facebook groups and the like. And the LifeWise founders, I thought, was just noteworthy, could be nothing. But their founders weekend recently was in Naples, Florida, which set off an alarm bell for me. As far as promoting...
Why was that an alarm bell? Tell us why.
At least in Ohio, a lot of we have a supermajority. In Ohio, supermajority of Republicans. There is an active effort to have a ballot initiative this fall that the focus is to end gerrymandering. It's actually the first one that's passed, but they're redoing it to see if this time it sticks. And so a lot of these folks seem to connect in Naples, and given its proximity to other groups in Florida and extremists, that was of note for me. Some of the places that are promoting the LifeWise curriculum or concept, one that really stands out is the Noah Webster Educational Foundation. They are a partner, according to the Project 2025 website, and they're out of Roanoke. The best way that I think I could describe it is they appear to be one of the arms of Glenn Youngkin's parents' rights movement. They are affiliated with the Leadership Institute, and they held a school board policy summit that included several groups that are linked to extremism and folks that are involved in Project 2025. BEST is a school board training program by FreedomWorks that you may not have heard of, but is training. It's one of several, actually, extremism programs that are training school board members on how to push this agenda on the local school board level. One of the groups that was involved with Noah Webster also is the Thomas Jefferson Institute for Public Policy, which is a member of State Policy Network. And according to an article I read on them, they have ties to ALEC, the Koch Foundation, Heritage Foundation, and have been involved in the school choice movement and climate change denial, among others. Their summit also included a former vice president for the Center of Education Reform, and a panelist who stood out to me is Meg Kilgannon. Meg is a senior fellow for education studies at Family Research Council, which of course is a Project 2025 partner. And she served in the U.S. Department of Education under Betsy DeVos as the director of the Office of Faith and Opportunity Initiatives. Her focus, she described as bills opposing the teaching of critical race theory and protecting students from gender identity ideology and oversight of libraries, etc. She's self-described as a culture war parent. And another group that is not a direct 2025 partner, but I have seen on their website, they promote the LifeWise curriculum as a homeschool curriculum that is recommended for use, is Freedom in Education. And that's a relatively new group, but they have a lot of ties to some of the people who have been activists on book bans and school choice coming from various states.
So here's a picture I want to paint for people. This is all my words, none of Natalie's words. So don't anyone out there put these words on Natalie. But I'm going to extract out and I'm going to say, all right, we have LifeWise, which at the beginning of the episode to some people might have felt like a very local Ohio, Midwestern kind of initiative. And yet it's popped up in places like Oklahoma, Colorado, Florida. There's big plans for it. And it is going nationwide. Indiana, and so on, other places. Okay. It's also connected to this huge and well-funded and powerful network of organizations, the Heritage Foundation, the Family Research Council, all of the think tanks you just mentioned, and so on. It is part of the ecosystem, right? This is not a lone wolf. This is not like they're not just out there doing something on their own. They are not acting as an isolated node. No, they're part of an ecosystem that includes billions of dollars and has eyes on direct access to the presidency and the executive branch if Trump wins in November. I want everyone to imagine a scenario where Project 2025 is implemented and these aggressive overtures we hear about education are taken seriously. And almost everywhere you look in the United States, there are kids who during the school day, whether it's at lunch, whether it's during a free period, whether it is during art class, are carting off to a religious education hour. And if you're talking about the Gospel Project, you're talking about the Family Research Council, you're talking about these kinds of theological worldviews that are taught in these spaces, you're talking about a place that's going to teach you that there are only men and women, that gay people, bisexual people, trans people are going to hell. That if a family has two moms, that family is messed up and part of a cult or part of something really hellbound. That if you have the wrong kind of religion, you may not actually be a good American. Imagine a country where there's a para-educational religious resource at every school district. Now, you might be like, Brad, you're crazy, and that's fine. What's crazy? Project 2025. Go read it. It's absolutely nuts. So you can tell me that I'm overreacting, and I'll just say, they've put it out there. They're so worried about people catching on to it that Trump and everyone else have never heard of it. Yeah, and who knows what that is, because they're so worried that the rest of us actually are catching on. So imagine a world, imagine a school district where like the majority of the kids go to 45 minutes of religious education every day. They make fun of those who don't. They're giving pizza parties and ice cream sundaes to everybody. And they're teaching you that being gay, lesbian, trans, bisexual, pansexual, etc., is going to make you hellbound. And you're not really an American if you're Muslim, humanist, non-religious, and so on, right? This is, if you guys want a window into my brain as Natalie's talking, this is where it's all going. So what else do we need to know, Natalie? What in terms of like connections or any other dimensions of this? And then I do want to leave people with hope, because I do think there are reasons to hope that the scenario I just laid out is not going to take place.
I need probably 2 hours too, but I just wanted to note in Ohio, there's Citizens for Christian Virtue is the state policy network aligned and Family Research Council aligned group that has promoted LifeWise, and the sponsors of the Ohio bill often work with them. And in this particular case, the co-sponsors on the House side, one is the same legislator who often platforms Chloe Cole, a detransitioner, and Riley Gaines, and going to the demonizing of transgender people. And then the co-sponsor, who now has been promoted to the state Senate, but when he sponsored it, Representative Catrona, his fiance is the political director for Catholic Vote, which, if you're not familiar, targets people like as they're leaving Mass and does a lot of geo-targeting to turn out the Catholic vote. So I would just encourage people that if something seems that's interesting, go look at who's sponsoring this bill in your area, or just if you think there's something, you're probably not crazy.
All right. What are some so yeah, you just named, and again, I think one of the things we can do here is say, well, who's promoting this? Who's sponsoring it? Who thinks it's a good idea? And you start to think about some of those folks local to Ohio and the Ohio State Legislature. I just think of Tony Perkins, one of the most homophobic and transphobic leaders in the Christian universe. I was at a protest where Tony Perkins was speaking one time, and there were Proud Boys outside, there were neo-Nazis outside, and nobody told them to go home. They were just like part of the whole landscape. So